It is the mid-year freakout tag that everyone is doing, and I got tagged by Alex Nieves, who's a great guy and who has a great Discord. That is actually basically the same 25 people talking to each other. But I was slightly hesitant to do this tag because coming up with answers that wasn't Robin Hobb for everyone was way too hard. But I got tagged. We're going to do it anyway, and I'm just going to let it be Hobb dominated if it is. So, prompt number 1 is, what's your favorite book I've read this year? And, I mean, Assassin's Fate is my favorite book I've read of any year. So, therefore, my favorite book I've read this year. Because, oh my god. Ouch. But also, the ending is so perfect, and the entire book is, paced so well, which Robin Hobb isn't even supposed to be good at pacing, and it's paced so well, and the side characters are off the charts, and Fix is the best character in fantasy, and this is the best ending to any character or any series I've ever read, and oh my god, I love it so much, it's so good, and, I mean, this is, there was a part in this book that I then, went to have dinner, and I was having dinner with my family, and, trying not cry, and it was are you okay? No, I'm not. And then I went and read it, and it was glorious, and the second last chapter is the best chapter in fantasy. Don't at me. This is the best book I read this year. Oh my, it had some stiff competition. Even not by Hobb, it had some stiff competition. But read a lot of good books this year, but this wins. This wins any year. No matter what year I would have read this wins. So, prompt number 2 is the best sequel you've read this year, and I'm not sure whether this means book 2 in a series, or just anything that isn't book 1. And I don't know whether to pick the best sequel relative to the other books, or just in general. So, in general, my favorite sequel I've read this year, that's book 2 in a series, is The Mad Ship by Robin Hobb, book 2 in the Live Ship Traders, surprising absolutely no one, because in terms of relationships, it's one of the best books ever written. It has absolutely incredible prose, incredible characters, incredible character development, such nuanced relationships, really good pacing, amazing world building. It's Hobb. But I forgot to bring the book up. If you're going relative to other books in its series, then the best sequel I read this year is The Dragon Republic by R.F. Kuang, which is the second book in the Poppy War trilogy and is my favorite book in that trilogy. This really takes what I liked about the Poppy War and kinda gets rid of the stuff I didn't like. Rin is not exactly likable, and she's an absolutely terrible person, but a very interesting protagonist. It's really well paced, has a huge amount of content, while also, unlike the Poppy War, giving the times it needs time to breathe in order for tension to build. And yeah, overall, thought it was great, but in terms of absolute terms, The Mad Ship was my favorite sequel I read this year. And second is Fool's Quest, and third is Golden Fool, and this is boring, so we're moving on. Too much Hobb, it's ruining the list. Why are you so good, Hobb? Rah. So, prompt number 3 is a new release that I haven't read yet, and I want to, and I'm going to have to cheat for this one, because in general, when a new release comes out that I want to read, I read it right away. I guess I could say To Sleep in a Sea of Stars. I'm planning to read that eventually. I just have no idea when, or if it's going to be in a year or 10 years. Who knows? But I'm going to pick The God Is Not Willing by Steven Erikson, which has technically come out, but not in Canada. So I can't have read it. It comes out in September for Canada. Do have it pre-ordered. Got the trade paperback. Yay, don't have to read another mass market Malazan. Fantastic. Why don't they come in trade paperbacks? I would almost consider rebuying the series if I could get them all in trade paperbacks for a reasonable price. I don't know. I'm sure lots of people would. But The God Is Not Willing sounds right up my alley. I'm stealing this from the Library of Alexandria, where he said that sometimes Erikson spends so long thinking about whether he can do something that he doesn't stop to think whether he should do something. And from what I've heard, The God Is Not Willing is he stopped to think whether he should do things. And it's it sounds like it's the style of storytelling from the first half of Malazan, but from the writer who has improved from the second half of Malazan. Because I think, stylistically, I prefer the first half of Malazan Book of the Fallen, but I think Erikson is just better at writing, especially dialogue and humor, in the second half. And I'm really excited to read Erikson's version of a really tight trilogy. I'm sure it's great because it's Erikson, and he's a wonderful writer. Like, if I hadn't read Realm of the Elderlings this year, he would be my favorite author of the year right now. And I'd be talking about Malazan a lot more. Because, Malazan is fantastic, so definitely excited to read that, and I will be reading it almost as soon as I have it. And it has technically come out, so it counts for this prompt. So the most anticipated release for the second half of the year is prompt number 4, and technically I could take The God Is Not Willing again, because it releases in the second half of the year. But that would actually be a lie. I might even be more excited for The Wisdom of Crowds by Joe Abercrombie. Age of Madness is on pace to be my favorite Joe Abercrombie trilogy, and my favorite trilogy in general that isn't written by Robin Hobb. I love the characters in that book. I love the writing. The stuff he's doing with the world is so interesting. It's plotted really well. I think the side characters are much stronger than the original trilogy, even if I think maybe the point of view characters don't quite hit as high highs as Glokta, or probably Logan as well. But I love that trilogy. I'm excited to see how Joe Abercrombie ends another trilogy. I have strong suspicions for how it's going to end. I'm about 89% convinced that I have predicted how the trilogy is going to end in general. Not for specific plots, but like the general world thing. We'll see if I'm right. I'll tell someone them at some point. I don't know, probably before I read it. I'm sure there's a first law talk out there somewhere. Whatever. Wisdom of Crowds, can't wait. Give me some more Abercrombie. One of my favorite authors. So, prompt number 5 is my biggest disappointment so far in 2021. And I'm not sure if I'm supposed to pick a series or a book, so I did both. For book, it is Dust of Dreams by Mr. Steven Erikson, which is easily my least favorite book in Malazan Book of the Fallen. We got an entire section of the book that's like this long. I don't know, that's what? 800 pages where I would just disliked the majority of the plot going on. We got characters that just, their entire chapters are not about the events, they're just about them thinking. And I still don't feel like I know the character's personality at all. We got characters in the first page of them being introduced. They think about like how they're rape fans and some of the least subtle morality in one of the most like theme-driven series ever. What was going on there? What the hell? This started strong, and then, like, if this was a standalone, I would have DNF'd it. Straight up. The only reason I finished this is because, obviously, I wasn't going to stop, like, after 8 great books. Well, 8 mostly great books. After a series I, like, really love. But this was the most disappointing book. And then, the most disappointing series, which I like more than Dust of Dreams, and this is more one that was just kind of unexceptional to me, and I just didn't really get attached to it, was Book of the Ancestor. Man, Nona is one of the most hyped characters I've ever read, who doesn't have that much development. Like, she's cool, and she's a badass, but, like, I also didn't get along with the writing style that well. I found it, like, when your eyes just kind of glide across a page? I got the opposite of that, despite it not being, like, one of, like, the fanciest or nicest prose. The prose is good. I couldn't picture anything. And, like, not very little about it was bad. I don't have that many cons for the series, but I just didn't get attached to much, unfortunately, which is too bad. I was really expecting to love this series. Everything I'd heard about it made me excited, but I thought it was just fine. Like, it was pretty good. Especially, the last book was my favorite. Holy Sister was good. But I don't get the hype behind Nona. Like, she's not a bad protagonist, but people put her on, like, their top protagonist lists with, like, Fitz and Dresden. And I'm just like, she's fine. It was funny. The biggest criticism for the Poppy War is Rin, the protagonist. And the biggest praise for this is Nona, the protagonist. And I think Rin is a way better protagonist than Nona. Like, I think she's way more interesting. I think she's way more development. She has a way better arc. she's not as likable, but whatever. So the next prompt number, definitely not checking out, prompt number 6 is the biggest surprise of the year. And there were a few that contended for this. I was tempted to say live ship, and I'm not just not saying live ship because I'm sick of giving Hobb everything on here. It's partially because even though I didn't like Farseer nearly as much, I knew based on Hobb's writing, dialogue, and relationships that she had the potential to write books that were among my favorite ever. I think if you go back to my reading TBR for the year and predictions, I even say that. One I did not expect to like as much was Tigana by Guy Gavriel Kay. I knew this was going to be very well written. For some reason, I didn't expect to love it. I thought it'd be like good, but I didn't expect to love it nearly as much as it did, and I didn't expect it to hit me emotionally as much as I did, or have like a character make my favorite characters ever list. I considered putting Project Hail Mary on here, and that is that if at the beginning of the year you showed me my ratings for the scores, I'd probably be the most surprised by how high Hobb is, but I would be more surprised by how much I like Project Hail Mary than I was by Tigana. But right before reading Project Hail Mary, other people read it, and they all said it was brilliant, and they were people I tend to agree on. So going into reading Project Hail Mary, I expected to love it. Going into reading this, I didn't really know how much I was going to like it, and I ended up absolutely loving it. So this wins biggest surprise for 2021. Prompt number 7 is favorite new author, and I didn't even need to go to my bookshelf for this. I'm just going to hold up the same book, Guy Gavriel Kay. Literally just the same answer again. I'd never read any Guy Gavriel Kay. It was surprising how much I liked it because he became a favorite new author. Hobb wasn't new. I'd read Farseer before, so I can't pick Hobb here. Hobb would win, obviously, but I've only read one book by Guy Gavriel Kay. I own a second, and I will be doing a read-along of The Lions of Al-Rasan later in the year. I think that's happening in like September or something. So if you guys want to, I think it's happening in Alex Nieves' Discord. We got a few people all reading The Lions of Al-Rasan, which I'm really excited for because of how good Tigana was. Guy Gavriel Kay is one of the best like prose writers I've ever read, maybe number one. His emotional moments hit so hard, writes really good characters, the plot is good, the world is so rich, and the way he delivers themes is masterful. What more can I say? He still needs to go to horny jail, though. But I've heard this is slightly not quite as horny. We'll see. Anyways, brilliant writer. So we are moving on to number 9. That's right, didn't skip anything in the middle. It goes from 7 to 9. That's how counting works. There's definitely not something we skipped over. So number 9 is my favorite new character of the year. And I can't pick Fitz, because I read Fitz in 2020. But I can pick Althea Vestrit from the Live Ship Traders trilogy, who is one of the main protagonists. And she's great. I love Althea. Hey, Vin's in the video again. Hi, Vin. Vin, not a new character, and wouldn't make this list, as in Vin, the character from Mistborn. But Althea is probably my favorite female character in the genre. Her character development and arc and voice are so distinctive. For those who don't know, she kind of starts, she's the daughter of the long-term captain of the Vivacia, which is kind of the Vestrit family live ship. And she's kind of grown up aboard the ship expecting to kind of be the heir to it, but inheritance is a bitch, and so guess what? It's a Hobb character, and things don't go as expected, and her entire arc through this trilogy is so good, and she's consistently, like, she's not quite my favorite character in Ship of Magic, but she's so good in all 3 books, and she remains consistently amazing throughout. Also, it's Hobb, so it has amazingly developed relationships with a ton of people, and just such a good character arc, that obviously I can't spoil, but she gets a spot for this list. So for the next prompt number 10, we have Book That Made You Cry. And I mean, I read all of Realm of the Elderling, well, not Farseer, but most of Realm of the Elderlings this year, and a few Malazan books, so I have a few to choose between. I think I picked the one that made me cry the hardest. Actually, maybe Assassin's Fate. I almost want to pick a non-Hob answer because there's too much Hob here. I don't know. I'm gonna go with Fool's Errand, and then as my secondary pick, I'm gonna go Reaper's Gale. So the Hob Malazan duo continue again. So Fool's Errand, if you read this and aren't unless you're someone who just doesn't cry reading books. But if you want to know whether it's possible for you to cry reading a book, you can read Fool's Errand, and that can be the litmus test. Man, this was brutal. Fool's Errand's so good, man. Anyway, and the other is Reaper's Gale. Anyone who's read Reaper's Gale knows what part got me. A couple parts got me. But this was really some of Erikson's best characterization, and probably the hardest hitting moment in the series emotionally. Oh, my cat is attacking random things. I don't know if the mic is picking that up, but whatever. She's not smart. Anyway, so this book definitely got me as well. And obviously, I just didn't want to pick the same book twice. My immediate instinct when I saw which book made you cry was to pick Assassin's Fate, but I don't want to pick the same book multiple times, so I didn't. And prompt number 11, man, this is a long prompt, is what book made you happy? And I kind of, again, picked two. One is a book that really only made me happy, like that's the only emotion it's going for, which is The House in the Cerulean Sea. In terms of percentage of the book that made me happy, this would be the highest. In terms of like the one moment that made me the happiest, it would be in Toll the Hounds by Steven Erikson, which is a not happy book in general. But there's a conclusion to an arc in this book that was as satisfying and pick me up and happy and made me feel the most joy. So yeah, like, I think I do have to pick Toll the Hounds. Most of it didn't make me happy. It really made me feel most of the emotions, but there's one specific continuation of an arc that brought great joy, and is one reason it's my favorite Malazan Book of the Fallen book. Malazan Book of the Fallen. Not this again. So, number 12 is the most beautiful book you bought or received this year. And this one's a bit of a technicality, because I received my Way of Kings leatherbound last year, but part 1 had an issue with the binding. So I have 2 part 1s now. They sent me a replacement. By the way, the people who work at Dragonsteel were like a wonder for customer service. Like, I sent them a picture of the issue, and they responded like instantly and were super polite and were great. And so yeah, everyone who worked there was wonderful. But so I got a replacement of part 1 of Way of Kings. This I actually think is the original one. Let me check. Yep. Binding's messed up. So this is the original one. But the replacement I got would be the most beautiful book I received this year by a lot. Because, I mean, Way of Kings leatherbound is the most beautiful book I own. Look at it. It's so nice. Like, come on. But that's not fully a book. So I also want to mention The Book of Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin, which is also illustrated and is actually beneath the jacket, is actually cloth bound, and is really nice. And it's got illustrations everywhere that are full color, and it's a pretty gorgeous book. Yeah, that would be the book I actually received this year, because Way of Kings leatherbound is on a technicality. Way of Kings leatherbound is definitely more beautiful than the Book of Earthsea, but for this year, I guess I'd have to give it to Book of Earthsea. And I'm pretty sure I got the Dune Anniversary Edition, which I just realized my door is blocking. Move my door to there. Which is pretty gorgeous, but I'm pretty sure I got that last year. Shadow of the Gods is a pretty nice book, but they don't really compete with these two. So yeah, we're moving on. And last but not least, what books do I need to read before the end of the year? And I'm not going to list out the entire thing, because this is so long, but the general plans are Wheel of Time reread, some Stormlight and Mistborn reread, the rest of the Dune books, Black Company, The Blackest Heart by Brian Lee Durfee, Sun Eater, other stuff. Skyward. I want to read Skyward. Finish more Brandon stuff. I've got a lot of stuff I want to read. I want to read Greenbone Saga. That's definitely on there. I feel like I already said Earthsea. Yeah, I'm reading Earthsea in November, reading some more Guy Gavriel Kay. I might end up starting the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. Oh, no, yeah, there's a Guards read-along in October. I'm doing that as well. So, yeah, hopefully I can read them all. But so many on this list that I want to read, I can't list them all. But yeah, that's the end of the tag. I just realized I forgot. I feel like I'm the last person to do this video. Has anyone not been tagged? If you haven't been tagged, you are now tagged. Because I feel like I'm the last person to do this. Because, you know, it's actually past the mid-year. It's in July. Mid-year would be after June. So I'm 14 days late. I think I'm the last one to do this. I'm sure someone is going to upload their video after me, and I'm going to be like, oh yeah, I love that channel. How did I forget about it? So I'm sorry if that's you, and I'm forgetting about you right now. But, yeah. So if you haven't done it, do it. I don't know. Bye, everyone.